Hey students, so today I'm going to go over the poetry notes that you missed because you were absent. So I need you to take out your notebooks, go to a new page, new notes, and put today's date. Today is the 6th of January, 2021. So make sure you guys remember when we do notes, we copy down the underlined words. So, poetry. Poetry is a type of literature that attempts to stir a reader's imagination or emotions using language, sound, or rhythm. Poetry is a type of literature that attempts to stir a reader's imagination or emotions using language, sound, and rhythm. So make sure you copy down the underlined words. If you need a moment to pause and copy this down, please take the time to do so now. Measurements in poetry. So make sure you guys go and make this new section, title it Measurements in Poetry. Line. The basic unit of poetry is the line. So just like in a story or a novel, which is called prose, they have a sentence. In poetry, they have something called a line of poetry. A blue day, that is a line of poetry. So at this point, if you need to pause the video to write down the definition, please take the time to do so. Stanza. So stanza is a grouping of lines set off by a space. Stanza, a grouping of lines set off by a space. So you have a group of lines. It is like similar to a paragraph. That is called a stanza. A stanza, a grouping of lines set off by space. Rhyme and rhythm. So this section should be titled Rhyme and Rhythm. So rhyme. Rhyme is the repetition of similar sounds in two or more words. Rhyme is the repetition of similar sounds in two or more words. So if you look at hill, full, these are sounds like man and mean. Similar sounds. So that's rhyme. Rhythm is the pattern of stresses within a line of verse. This is more important when we're going to do Shakespeare, but you still need to know that rhythm is the pattern of stresses within a line of verse. A rhyme scheme. So the rhyme scheme is the pattern of rhyme that comes at the end of each line in poetry. Rhyme scheme, the pattern of rhyme that comes at the end of each line in poetry. So if you look over here, true friends are by your side. At the end of the line, you have side, and so it's given an A because it's the first line. Through it all, so all doesn't rhyme with side, so it becomes B because it's the second line. True friends are there. So there doesn't rhyme with side or all, so it's given a C because it's the third line. And finally, to catch you when you fall. And so fall rhymes with all, so it's the rhyme scheme is A, B, C, B. So rhyme scheme is the pattern of rhyme that comes at the end of each line in poetry. End rhyme. End rhyme is when a poem has lines ending with words that sound the same. End rhyme is when a poem has lines ending with words that sound the same. Hector the collector collected bits of string, collected dolls with broken heads and rusty bells that would not ring. So string and ring are at the end and they rhyme. So that's an end rhyme. An internal rhyme is when a word in the middle of a line rhymes with a word at the end of the same line. So, standing brave in secret caves, we call to lost kids in the crowd. Lure and save these lonely slaves, our hearts are open, growing proud. So internal rhymes are in lines, brave and cave and save and slaves. So that is your internal rhyme, when a word in the middle rhymes with the word at the end. Figurative language and literary terms. So this section should be called Figurative Language and Literary Terms. Alliteration. The repetition of the same sound or letter at the beginning of several words. Alliteration, the repetition of the same sound or letter at the beginning of several words. For example, while I nodded, nearly napping. So you have the same letter N, N, N at the beginning. That is alliteration, this repetition of the same sound or letter at the beginning of several words. Hyperbole. Hyperbole. Hyperbole is a figure of speech that involves an exaggeration of ideas for the sake of emphasis. A figure of speech that involves an exaggeration of ideas for the sake of emphasis. For example, if you go and say that hyperbole is without a doubt the single greatest thing in the history of the universe, that is an exaggeration. It is not the single greatest thing about the universe. That's an exaggeration. Imagery. Imagery is a description that appeals to the senses. Your senses are sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste. So imagery is a description that appeals to the senses. Your sight, sound, smell, and touch. Some examples. Sight is somebody says something is foggy or gloomy. Touch, when somebody says something sticky or slimy. Sound, boom, squeak, buzz, whisper. Taste, juicy, sweet, spicy, and smell, rotten, stinky, sweet. A metaphor. A metaphor is a comparison between two unlike things without using the word like or as. For example, the night is a big black cat. The comparison that's being made is night and a cat, and those are two unlike things, and they don't use the words like or as, so that's what makes it a metaphor, a comparison between two unlike things without using the word like or as. Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is a word which imitates the natural sounds of a thing. Onomatopoeia, a word which imitates the natural sounds of a thing. So if you look over here, it says pitter, pitter, pat, pat. And those words imitate things that you can find in nature. So that's what makes it an onomatopoeia. Personification. Personification is when the author talks about an object as if it were a person or an animal. For example, the stars winked at me. Stars cannot wink at you, and that's why it's an example of personification, when the author talks about an object as if it were a person or an animal. Repetition. Repetition is a literary device that repeats the same words or phrases to emphasize an idea. Repetition is a literary device that repeats the same words or phrases to emphasize an idea. So in the poem, it says, I am car sick, open a window. I am car sick, take this pill. And so if you notice, it keeps repeating, I am car sick, and so it's repeating and to emphasize the idea of the person being car sick. And that's what makes it repetition. A simile. A simile is a comparison between two unlike objects using the words like or as. My eyes are as blue as the ocean. So that's what makes it a simile, because it's comparing two unlike objects, eyes and blue as the ocean and eyes, using the words like or as. So, poetry. Some might consider the study of poetry old-fashioned, yet even in our hurried lives we are surrounded by children's rhymes, verses from songs, commercials, well-written texts. Anytime we recognize words as interesting and sound meaning or construct, we know poetry. And so that's why it's important we learn about it, okay? So these are your notes for today. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you guys soon. Make sure you write this down for your open notes quiz, guys. Bye.